Spencer Starks, Tom Tuzin,
Here.
and David Hume.
Here.
And we do have an audience member, and it doesn't look like we have any audience on Zoom.
Russian pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as I discussed before, the purpose of this meeting tonight is the first budget workshop, but we're not going to be putting any numbers in. Brenda, can you put it on the screen, please?
Yep.
What I wanted to do is show you the workbook and show you some different things that you can do with this workbook. And there's no numbers in it whatsoever, except for the assessment tab, but we're going to show you, we're going to walk through just some cool things you can do with it. And then my goal is to send it out to you so you can start playing with it, look at it. And then your staff, we're already working on field numbers for projects and stuff that we need to put in. Obviously your contract. So I'll start building that 25 column, and then we'll come to the next meeting at the next budget workshop with all of your input like we did last year and kind of go through it line for line. What do we want to change and all that? So the goal tonight is to look at this, make sure we want, like we did last year, if you remember, we added some lines, we took some lines away, we changed some names. If we want to do that with any of those, or we're good from last year. And then the rest is going to really be discussion. There's a lot of things that you all need to discuss tonight regarding the budget. Some projects that may be coming up. You've got the community center thing that you're talking about. I'm proposing a couple of things coming up as far as the sidewalk project, things like that. So that's really what tonight is, not really to input numbers. It's more conversation and discussion and prepping you for your next budget workshop where we're going to come with numbers.
Would the next budget meeting have, because I know we had some projects that were like 2-year based, so that would cover. Okay.
Yep. And we can bust it out however you guys want.
Right.
So what I want to show you before we start getting into your discussion, which is going to be the bulk of this meeting, right? So Brenda, go to the assessment summary tab. So right here, if you click on that, because you're going to get this live workbook, this is what I'm going to send you. So scroll down, Brenda, to the right here. So if you look where that's highlighted yellow, so what we did was we inserted a chart where now you can go as a board member and you're like, okay, what is it going to look like if we raise our budget $1 million? So if you put $1 million in there, Brenda.
Well, do you want me to add the million to the 3.9? Because that's what the budget was?
Nope, I put it right here. So if we increase $1 million there, then it tells you what the per unit is. Does everybody see that where it changed? So you can mess with that.
It would go along.
Correct.
The left side. Okay.
It's in there and it tells you kind of what you're looking at right there. So you can play with it and kind of see, okay, if we only raise it 100,000, what's it going to look like? 5 million, what's it going to look like?
Can you explain to me per product? Yeah, does that mean
That's a total.
So you see,
That's your estate, your bungalow, your townhome. This is your product.
I just wanted to know that because
Yeah.
it's just weird name of product.
yeah, it's the product type, how they bust out your methodology.
I get it.
Okay. So when you scroll down back to those two charts, you see on the left there, assessment trend analysis, there's your products and they carry over.
I don't think that changed.
It changed.
Yeah, it changed.
Same price, $1 million and 100,000, isn't it? Oh, no, it's
No.
okay.
Yeah, it changes. So you can do different things with it. And then it'll correspond. And if you go to 001, Brenda. So here, scroll down to expenditures.
That's where we're starting.
This is where I would advise you all to start. If you want to put numbers in the 25 column, I would start under expenditures and kind of go down from there. And, you know, project based. So when you start typing numbers in there, Brenda, if you start typing, just put random number, whatever in there. So
in the 25, the year 25.
the year 25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
fiscal
Yep.
year 25.
This column.
I'm sorry. So when you start putting numbers in there, you can go back to that assessment summary tab. And it's going to be reflected at the top. Scroll up, Brenda. It'll be reflected here where you'll see the change, the percentage change.
It's
Over
or here, you'll see it easier.
yeah, right there.
Oh, okay.
You'll see every time you put a number in,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to, now it's going to show you some negative numbers right now because I don't have anything in there, right? I have nothing in there except for all the way at the bottom, the fund balance, which is what you ended with last year.
Last year, yep.
And the reason it populates all the way across is because I don't have any expenditures in there. But that's what you ended with in fiscal year 23 is 5,764,000, and it just populates it across. But once I start putting numbers in, like when I send it to you, I'm going to put all the actual fiscal year 23 numbers, and I'm going to put your adopted budget for 24. So those will be in there when I send it to you, and the rest will be blank. So that those numbers at the bottom, the fund balance will change.
Okay, so you're not putting any actuals or projected from this?
Nope. Not until now. I will be doing that over the next week or so, and then I'll send that updated one to you. But for you all to start kind of looking at it and kind of playing around with it, I'm only going to fill in those two columns, 23 and 24, to get that out to you like tomorrow. And then over the next week, I'll get you one out that has the numbers that I'm going to start filling in.
You gonna make any of those protected cells?
You can't break it. We have made it, Leah made it to where you can't break it. Like you're not going to be able to change anything on the assessment tab. We're going to see, you're going to be our test. Yeah.
You just gave me a challenge.
Yeah. You're going to be, and I already, it's funny because I sent an email to Leah right before this. I said, Jack is going to rip this apart and he's going to try and break it. So you're going to be the test to see if it can be broken.
Okay.
The projections over to the right, that column, we went over that last year, and we can do this however you guys want as we go through the budget and even the financials. As we go across, let's say sidewalks, we can either do the projections to the budget, to the actuals, or we can put a specific value in there. If we know Russ is not going to go over 200,000, we can put exactly in there 200,000 instead of to actuals or to budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So we can do that with your projections. You know, they were always off and wonky. This is going to make them exactly what we
That
want.
certain way, like if you put an actual, I mean, a forced number in there, put it in yellow or green or something, so we don't, so we understand where that number's coming from, and it's not a calculated number.
Correct. And anything, when I send you the budget, this workbook, after I filled in the 25 and I've done your projections and stuff, I'm going to put notes off to the side.
Okay.
How I came up with that number, why I came up with that number. It's based off of this. So you're going to have notes to show you where I came up with every 25 budget number that I came up with.
Have you recategorized or regrouped? The past couple budget cycles, we've taken the stuff on the left column and we've sort of collapsed some. We tried to simplify some of them, but some of them we expanded back out. Going into this budget cycle, have you recategorized anything, or is it exactly the same line by line?
It's exactly what we did for 24. And that was part of what I want you all to look at too, is see, okay, do we need to change line items? Do we want to add more? Do we want to take some away? Do we want to collapse some? So that's the feedback that I want to get from you guys based off of this initial workbook that I'm going to send out to you. Because we may want to change it because your financials are going to mimic this. So whatever we change and we turn this in, your financials starting in October are going to mimic this. So we want to make sure, and there are some things in my personal opinion that I think could be combined. We've cleaned up the common area. I know that was a big question because over the years, I think everything was just kind of thrown into common area. Now, every single invoice that comes in, we are looking at every single line. And let's say Russ went to Celebration Hardware and he bought stuff for paint. He bought some liners for the dog stations. He bought whatever. We're actually putting that exact amount. If he bought $50 worth of paint thinner, paint brushes and all that, that $50 is being coded to R&M paint. not common area. And then the dog station bags for $10 are going to be coded to common area. So we've cleaned that up a lot already this year, and we'll obviously continue it next year. But so that is all cleaned up. Not like it was last year where it was kind of like a dumping ground over the years of everything was going to
Well, in the
common
past 2 or
area.
3 years, we've been kind of tinkering as we're going,
Correct.
readjust, and I imagine we'll continue to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Line 141 and 146 are the same.
Yeah, I think what we did last year was one was replacement and one was removal.
I thought there were two on them.
Yeah, the tree thing has been confusing because we had a
Yep.
tree budget for Russ and his team, but then we had the separate line item for the
For the-
contractor that comes
yep.
around and does.
And that's up at the top in your contracts. This is just Russ's money to be able to remove trees or replace trees. So I'll fix that where we take a removal out of that top line and we have one for replacement and one for removal.
And I think, again, it's just an initial comment, that was one of the places I continue to get confused is you guys do kind of the one-offs when we do weird projects, where we just go buy things at cost. It's really our vendors are all on fixed price
That is correct.
contracts. If you can group them that way of, hey, basically vendor contracts versus it from our staff management and bucket them that way. That way, like the tree question, I'll know, okay, once I see it up on the vendor one, I know it's not stuff for us to go do one-off trimmings. It's the vendor doing the cuts.
So that is the way it is now,
Okay.
unless you want it different. So Brenda, scroll up. All that R&M, no, I'm sorry, scroll down. My apologies. All that R&M stuff is your staff.
Okay.
Buying materials to be able to do those things. Now, if you scroll even further up, are contracts up, Brenda? Yeah. See all the contracts where it says contract fountain, trees and trimming, shrubs, all that. Those are your hard cost contract with United. Churchill does your fountain. Right now, Solitude does your ponds.
So the one thing I would ask.
Brightview does the trees.
On the contracts, if you could name, because like, Brightview has got multiple line items in here because they've got 6 or 7 different main line items that they work under. If you can just tag theirs in here, who the different contractors are. Solitude may only be one,
Mhm.
but Brightview's got several.
United
Or not Brightview, yeah.
Yeah, United does. They have several and that's the other thing I wanted to talk to about this year, because I just hammered Brett on it, is previously you guys have it listed out. So when they send us our invoice, it's $88,000 a month is what Juniper was.
Mhm.
You
just
guys
lump it.
don't have, well, Juniper did really great because they were here for so long. They lined it out like shrub and tree. Go back up, Brenda.
It should line up to how they're proposed.
Yeah, so they lined it out, shrub maintenance, X amount.
Right.
Well, United sent me one invoice and had it and I sent it back to him. I said, nope. Piece it out because that's what you do. So it's up to you guys. A lot of districts will have it just landscape contract and the full amount. They don't have it broken out like ground maintenance, shrub maintenance,
I think
mulch.
there's a lot of value because there's some things in here which are just fixed, like the mowing and blowing.
Mhm.
That's just a fixed number. That doesn't ever change.
Yeah.
Every month.
The only one in
changes.
here would be mulch would change because that's only billed when they put mulch
Right.
down. That's not billed out.
There's
112.
there's the fire treatment, the fire ant treatments, if you have those.
If you have those, and those would all be under, so if United presents us a proposal for something additional, that's gonna go under, scroll down, Brenda,
So that's the other section.
it's R&M, landscape, other landscape.
For the landscape.
Yeah, that's where anything like that, top choice, if they're doing a landscape enhancement, replacement of sod, that's not warranty.
So that one, if we can, my opinion would be, if
Yeah.
we can take, instead of making that R&M, put that back up to contracts, because that's all tied directly. to
Put it
that.
under there, okay,
If I read R&M, I'm gonna immediately associate it with your contract.
that's fine. Well, we can't put it under contract. I mean, we can't label it contract. We can put it up there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We can put it up there to group it with them, but it'll still say other landscape, and maybe we'll put,
No, because.
contract.
no, it's not a contract.
No, if there's change orders, it's gotta go under R&M. You just have to realize that if it's not.
If we can somehow tag it, so we know.
Sure, I can put it whatever you
what
want.
vendor- I mean, even if.
Yeah.
There's a separate line item or separate column with vendor names. Because I don't know a single line item on here that's not gonna be tied to exclusively one vendor. We don't have any line items where two vendors are tackling one line item.
No, the only one that you have multiple vendors for multiple line items is United for the landscape contracts. That's the only one. Solitude has a contract for ponds and then fountain maintenance, aeration maintenance. That's it.
Sorry, going back to this
Yeah.
itemized landscaping, what was the rationale? Do you guys like it done that way?
I personally don't like it that way, but that's just me. I don't have it in other districts that way. I condense those and I have it under landscape contract and whatever the total amount is. The only thing I will have broken out from that is mulch or annuals because those are billed at time of service. They're not included in your contract, but I don't have it broken out like you guys have it. Ground maintenance, shrub and trees, general site.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
That's the way it's always been
Well,
here.
that directly aligns to how we asked them to bid. That's how the proposal.
Yeah, you don't need a budget.
Yeah, but you don't,
Just-
yeah.
That's the rationale.
But that's also been how your budget and financials have been laid out. It's always been broken out like that. Me personally, I like it contracts landscape and that's your bulk. And then underneath it, I'll have contract mulch, contract
Yeah,
irrigation.
you'll see mulch twice a year, you see mulch.
Yeah.
Annuals 4 times a year.
And the mulch line, even though it says contract mulch, because United provided you a not to exceed for mulch. Doesn't mean you may not use it. You may not. But if you do use them for mulch, because you have a right to bid it out, if you use them for mulch, they've guaranteed you a price to not to exceed. That's the only reason. And that's the number we put in there. But and annuals is the same thing.
So why don't we simplify it then?
It's your call.
I would go with that.
My only question, Tom, for you, just since you're kind of a maintenance guy, is this, I mean, you're tracking individual projects, they're gonna be separate line items.
That's gonna, well, but the individual projects. fall
His stuff's
under-
gonna fall under other landscape. That's right.
Does it matter?
It doesn't matter. on the contract.
Nothing's gonna fall under here because that is what it is.
Yeah.
Those are contract prices. It's not gonna change unless we add something to their contract and then Jan does an addendum.
Yeah,
That's the only way.
the-
That's right.
I think if there was an issue, for example, like they didn't do their job, it won't even cost us a dime. We'd never see it. They would just have to fix it or install stuff or whatever. It'd be on their cost. We'd never see it over here
That's right.
for the contract.
That is correct. So Brenda, if you can highlight, let's highlight mulch, irrigation. Highlight those. Tree trimming, that's Brightview. Shrub maintenance. Pressure washing. Ground maintenance. Annuals. And then the next two. So I'll clean those up into one. I mean, well, it'll be a couple. It'll be mulch, annuals, and then contract landscape. And I can put your vendor's name there. That's fine. The issue is with putting a vendor's name on there, if you guys go out to bid mid-year, you know, we're gonna have to make sure they change your financials and everything else because your financials are built off of your budget. They mimic your budget.
Typically, we've put that information in the narrative just so we can look and read the description. But
Yeah.
I'm looking back at, just for information, I'm looking back at your 2007 budget, and we had 10 or 12 items under common area, sidewalks, boardwalks, irrigation, but then we had a big one called landscaping. We have trees, turf, and shrubs. So
Yeah.
I guess over the years, previous boards wanted more delineation, so we split it out, but
But if there's historically no deviation from it. it shouldn't matter.
So we'll fix those. Are there any others? The rest is really R&M that would fall to obviously your staff, which that's just material other than other landscape. Other landscape is typically anything your vendor would, you know, if we do enhancements, replacements, anything like that, we would go under
Yeah,
other
not
landscape.
replacements, just replacements.
Hmm?
Not warranty replacement.
No.
Just replacement.
Proposals. They would give us a proposal, hey,
That we're paying. for.
yeah, to redo that island over there, it's gonna be 50 grand. That's what would go there.
We have to do it.
No, you can decline everything, Jack.
No, right now we got.
It's not North Village, so. we want to
Yeah.
find it.
I mean, I look at some of the, I'm just looking at some of the smaller one-offs again in the interest of simplifying.
Mhm.
I don't really care the pluses and minuses on fire equipment. I don't know that I really care the pluses and minuses on our, or was it our splash pad or fountain? I don't even know which fountain we're talking about.
It's a splash pad.
Okay.
That's the only fountain you guys have.
Oh, we've got
No,
Fountain Market
wait.
Street
Yeah,
Square.
that's it, right?
No, you guys.
Market Square.
Oh,
And that's
it's a
it.
large
Yeah.
number this year.
Well, but again, I'm in the interest of simplifying, do I care about that one asset, but I've got 100 other assets, I've got pergolas, why am I picking the fountain, which I'm not even sure which fountain it is still.
Oh,
Why am I picking
It's
that one? to
both.
single
It's a
that out?
splash pad and the fountain.
see how much we spend per year on it?
Yeah, and you do have to budget for maintenance. Now, if you wanted to do one line item that said common area maintenance, but we have to make sure we're budgeting money for those specific items. I don't care how we classify it. You want to put it in one line item, that's fine, but we need to make sure we're covering enough money for those maintenance
I mean,
items.
as I look from a top level, I'm really worried about what are the major ticket items, and we saw it from the reserve report that we got a couple of years ago. 85% of our budget is in 4 items: sidewalks, light poles, alleyways, and irrigation.
That is correct.
So those are honestly the 4 that I care about. The rest of them, for me, if you really want to simplify, I'd take all those and throw them for the one.
And again, we can do that because I can bust out the numbers. I can take this and put numbers in for each one and then look at all those numbers and roll it into one. I can absolutely do that.
I'm putting out food for thought, I mean, because is that simplifying it too much? I don't know.
I have a feeling in 3 years, we're gonna be like, what is that line item? What's in it? Oh, yeah,
Could be.
10 things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and when people wanna know why things are going up, it does help to show we're spending all these 20,000s and 15,000.
I do agree some things can be condensed, but I do agree you still need some things in there because you got to track it
I mean, I
and
just
we
think-
have to budget for it.
Again, I look at even the R&M pressure washing, that's not the landscaper, that's you guys. We created that as a separate line item when we put,
That's for anything pressure washing that we have to purchase goes in that
so
line.
that's equipment, that's not.
That could
Okay.
be materials, bleach, whatever they're using. I'm just spitting stuff out, but that's what goes in there. All the R&M stuff is just material because you already have the labor, right?
Right,
So it's just material.
I mean, again, does that line item as an example, does that include the cyclone or is that just the trailer pressure?
That includes everything, anything having to do with pressure washing.
Okay.
Anytime we have to fix that cyclone, it goes right there to pressure washing R&M. Any parts we have to buy, any liquid,
Hoses, motors, pumps. you know,
anything having to do,
scrubbers.
yeah, we would put it there.
It gives us a pretty accurate assessment every year of where we're at spending money. Are we way over on it or under?
To me, if that works for you, I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, again, we'll make whatever you guys want work, but there are some things that we definitely need to be tracking, you know.
How about you look at the contracts and we'll look at the R and M.
Don't worry about it, we got this one covered, that's what I just heard. Russ, can you turn on that one, just so Gary can see our one member of the audience?
I have no idea.
Well, I had a comment. Oh,
It's already plugged
When
in.
you say you don't know, you should
Oh, is
ask.
it- what-
Are you saying you don't know you
Yes.
should interrupt, or you don't know you should ask?
I don't know.
It's
Okay,
this
let's-
one. No, you got
Go ahead, since we got,
Okay.
we got a 30-second IT break here.
The reason that fountains, Gary, the reason that fountains are on there, if you remember 3 years ago, you had a contract to repair the splash pad and fountain. And the guy made a mistake, they misspelled some words. and
There we go.
To go out
Well,
and rebuild it. and
The
kept
remote.
working.
is,
Is that in the contract? Are we gonna have to pay you more money? So there's a reason all this got broken out over the years. But Angel's right. Cause you asked for it.
No, I get there's a reason over time. I just look at trying to simplify this just because we've got
Okay.
a lot of line items here, just trying to make this simple.
Well, like fire equipment. Why isn't that under equipment?
Fire equipment?
Fire equipment, it's such a minor. We don't have a lot of fire equipment.
No, it's the stuff in this building.
I know, but like fire equipment, I could see, I could see some things, not a lot.
Fire equipment, in my opinion, should be under building operating costs. Because we don't do any fire equipment other than in this building, because we have to get them tested and,
Well, just regular
Yeah.
business, really
Yeah.
building maintenance for.
and that's where I would want to put that.
Yeah,
And that probably broke out as a separate contract. That's to Gary's point. I'm guessing the reason they have these separate line items over time is every time they brought in a new vendor, even if it's a one-time $1,000 a year thing.
is this
It's probably got its own line item.
It's okay.
No,
well, this is great, but. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you like that?
that's so weird. It
This is
just
the
keeps
second
going
time.
on and off.
This is the second time.
That one will come on.
Yeah, that one won't come on. I don't know.
Sorry, Gary.
So yes, that is
Here,
why
closer.
we break some stuff out. We can condense some stuff, but I do feel we need to keep some stuff broken out. But I do agree. We can, if whatever we can condense, I think you should.
Does it make it harder for you to do it next year when the items aren't listed?
Well, again, that's where it comes in. We'll have to do this exercise again next year and go, okay, do you want stuff like it is, or do you want to condense stuff, or do you want to add lines to it?
It's not a hill
You
to
know?
die on as long as I know where the numbers. are.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. So if there's not any obvious.
But I do agree with with the landscape above all. I mean, you can have one line for landscape. It's
Great.
That's fine.
Done.
so yeah, other than that, that's really it. I'll fill in those 23 and 24 numbers and then turn it over to you guys, play with it, start thinking about projects like we did last year, come to the next budget. If you can send me your stuff beforehand, I can kind of compile it and put it all together like I did last year on another tab on there. Like I did last year, capital projects or annual projects is what we're calling it, I think now.
Talk a little bit about, I know you've got the sidewalk one is the big one you're looking to tackle. Do you want to jump into that for a minute? Just to.
So, as you know, I don't know, well, it's probably been the last 2 years that we were tasked with kind of tracking stuff for the board. So you could see really how long it takes staff to do certain projects with the staff that you have. So sidewalks was the biggest one. We looked at that. To do every sidewalk in Celebration with the staff that we have with, and obviously you all know grinding is more budget friendly than replacements, right? Well, sidewalks can only be ground so many times before they have to be replaced. So we went and we did, and we tracked everything. To do every sidewalk that needs to be replaced in Celebration would take your current staff probably 4 to 6 years to get them done.
But by then.
And then
there'd be
you're
others.
starting over. Exactly. So it'd be an ongoing thing. So that's how we track that. We did it for boardwalks too. Remember, it took, I don't know how many, it took about a year or 2 years to, if we were to replace every single boardwalk at the stage that we're replacing them. So we did all that. The biggest thing is we're seeing an uptick in claims for trips and falls. We're seeing a really big uptick in that, not only in this district, but just across the state. So what we are doing now, it's already been started to be able to present to you all, is how much is it going to be if we had a company come in and do every sidewalk in Celebration and get it done? Is it going to be a large number? I would imagine so. I don't know what that number is yet. We're still in the process of getting those numbers right now. And my goal was to bring it and present it to you all, not to be a part of your budget assessment wise, but for you to take money from your reserves and to get this project done. That was going to be my layout. Now, whatever you decide to do is totally up to you. You could do nothing, but.
When you say, what's the scope essentially? They're going in and doing what?
So what they would do is, according to ADA, anything that's over 1/4 of an inch is considered out of compliance. So right now, what you have, if you've looked, the trees are tearing everything up. We all know that.
Sorry, just for a second, does ADA tie directly to, is that kind of a threshold from a legal perspective?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
That's the standard.
Yeah.
Across the board. So what you have in Celebration now are some that are trip hazards, right? And we go out and we do them as we get them in, or we do an inspection twice a year and we kind of prioritize them, and they go out and work on those constantly, right? Grind them down. If they need to be replaced, they replace them. We also have some in the community. Tom and I were doing the pond walk with the vendor and Russ. And you have some sidewalks that have been, because roots are growing and everything, it's not necessarily a trip hazard. Now it's a hump, right? So you're going up over the hump and going down the hump. Well, I just busted it right on the hump. So you have a lot of those too, and they need to be replaced. So that would be included in that as well.
So what I would definitely, and I like, 100%. I
And
would like to see
hold on,
sidewalks.
there's
Oh, sorry.
there's two components to it, right? So there's a legal component that we need to talk separately on that I've already talked to Jan about. And then there's this of getting all your sidewalks done because you are seeing an uptick in insurance claims. The legal part that I'm talking about are, you have a lot of different entities around, right? You've got condo associations, town, whatever, different associations that are bringing in equipment and doing work, and they are damaging sidewalks.
Yeah.
Some as recent as sidewalks that were just replaced and they're damaging them. A claim we have right now that has come through is specific to an area that it is damaged by equipment. We have provided pictures. We've gone back and forth with the association. They're saying it wasn't them. We're like, we have pictures. It is you. And now that specific area is part of a claim now. At the end of the day, we own the sidewalks. So that was my legal thing to Jan. We'd have to try and come up with some way, and I don't know what that way will be. We've asked them to notify us if they have work coming in. They don't. We only find it if the guys are out in the community that day, or somebody notifies us that, hey, work's being done over there, or we see it.
Can they do, I don't know if we can do this, so Jan help me on this one. Can we do a permitting thing?
Well, we talked at our last meeting about a
doing
board resolution.
Yeah, so, or actually having a rule, right now we have the policy for events.
Right.
Kind of step it up to an actual rule of, if you're using the sidewalks, you have to get an application and get it approved. So that gives it some teeth that they can challenge.
But I'm wondering too, if we can, not. I always think not just a rule, because I know almost every condo, church, service area, they've all abused this heavily. And then of course they point the finger and like, no, and we get into the he said, she said type thing. Like they've got to get the work approved before it even they can even.
Well, again, what we talked about at the last meeting was, and I don't know if we can do this or not, I think Jan was looking into it, was really a two-step, finding's the right word or whatever. There is obviously the back end of it, if somebody damages it, that they would have to pay for the repairs. I don't think we want to have them do the repairs. I think we do the repairs.
No, we do the repairs.
And we just bill them, but separately on the front end, have it as part of a rule or board resolution or whatever. There's an
application process like we do for the events that they have to apply.
I would almost.
But the application in my mind has teeth to it. If we catch that you have started work, even if you don't do any damage, if you started work and you haven't done an application, there's a fine or a fee or a penalty. There's a financial implication simply for not doing the paperwork on the front end, because that's the bigger problem we have. Somebody's telling us.
Right.
Can we find somebody for that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
But we can
issue one.
Yeah.
But
and we can
exactly.
Go after, and
We can go after them.
Can we ask for a dated before picture?
They should have to video if they're gonna do work.
Yeah. Because that's what the problem
Part of
is.
the application problem.
Yeah.
Video your sidewalks, and if everything's good when you're done, great.
Yeah.
That's the
But
application.
I'd like it before and after, because it was like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It was like this. I don't know what happened to those 1,000 cracks.
that's what I mean by video, before and after.
You know,
Because that's the problem we're running into. And like I said, just as recent, Russ, that we had just replaced some sidewalks, and sure enough,
they're all cracked.
they damaged them.
Jan, have we gotten any claims for slipping on slippery surfaces on the sidewalks or anything like that?
No, it's mostly
Trips.
trips.
Okay, just wondering because we seem to have no control over when these people pressure wash their sidewalks. There's a couple that
No,
Well, if it's-
we've not had
Never does.
slippery. I
So-
haven't
so
heard, I
if somebody
haven't seen
slips-
I haven't seen any of that.
and there's mildew, that's gonna fall on you, even though it's district sidewalk, because you are supposed to maintain those areas from mold and everything.
yeah, but
else.
you still be secondary.
We're still be
Well,
secondary.
you can always be secondary, doesn't mean we're gonna pay out.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone could be a suit.
Yeah, CCNRs usually say you have to maintain your own sidewalk.
Okay, that's fine.
So the other thing I'd definitely like to see, and I agree, we will probably end up going down the path, I imagine it's gonna financially make sense of going to an outside vendor. I would like to see though, what's the average time, and if you can associate that time with the cost for staff to do it. As well as cost of materials for both grinding and replacing, because if we're gonna spend, totally make up numbers, $1 million on somebody coming out and doing 500 panels. Well, if you guys tell me that you can do 500 panels for $500,000 a year. Or even if they're close to equal, the reality is, whatever we do to bring in a vendor today or next fiscal year, we're gonna have to do again 3 years from now. These panels are not gonna stop popping.
No.
So it's gonna be a recurring thing. So I'd like to see the math, if the math tilts heavily towards just increasing staff. I realize that would be a significant increase, but compared to what I may pay out to an outside vendor to keep bringing them in every 2 or 3 or 4 years to do this, the maths may still work out in our favor. I don't know.
We're,
I'd like to get that
we're
comparison
giving
to
you
see.
that because we have a full separate maintenance crew that's all they do is they go out and do sidewalks and repairs. They don't work for Celebration. They're separate. But we already have the analysis of what it's going to take for your staff. We already have that analysis. And I can pull the cost that we've spent on material.
1 year and say,
Oh, yeah.
here was the cost of that staff, here was the cost of all those spare parts and fuel and chainsaws and
Yep.
all that stuff.
Yeah, we already have all
Here's
of
the
that.
Cost of the labor,
Mhm.
and then how many panels they.
I can tell you right off the bat, there's no way we can compete with some concrete company. We just can't. I mean, we just be honest, we got guys that are making $17 an hour. And let's say they're doing 4 panels, and I'm just being honest.
Mhm.
You're gonna get another company that's getting paid by the square foot, and they're gonna do 40 panels a day. There's no way we can compete.
I mean,
And-
It's just mathematics.
And we don't have we don't have a concrete truck
Yeah.
here. We are, we're tied to the vendor to have to deliver concrete.
And if that's the case, I'm almost,
Yeah.
please don't take this
Oh, I'm not
guidance.
taking it wrong.
But I'm, at that point, if that's truly the math that heavily in that favor, I'm
Mhm.
almost looking to decrease staff over time. And simply, are we leaning towards outsourcing all the panels and kind of down scoping what they're doing
Well-
just to basic grinds?
So just.
And I don't know that answer yet, but
Yeah, and if
But
you
there's-
did that, you're talking about 3 employees.
we had more than that doing.
No, at any
Sidewalks.
given time. But we don't put every employee in Celebration out on sidewalks, then your other stuff wouldn't be getting done.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
So in general, with the sidewalks, the ones you can schedule,
Mhm.
absolutely, we wanna get an outside vendor to go and do it, because we know we're gonna go from here to here.
Just like we've been doing.
Yeah.
But you do have these emergency situations,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a water main break or, wow, that is, somebody said this.
We're not gonna totally get rid of staff. on this one.
No, but that's what I'm
Absolutely.
saying,
Yeah.
there's, we still need a crew to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And if a tree falls over, I mean, you're still gonna have those emergency, but my point was, we are seeing an uptick and they need to get done. If that's the board's decision, and maybe you do half a community one year, half a community next year, we're gonna give you different options and the board may say, nope, just we're fine with the way staff's keeping up with it, which is fine too. But it definitely, you need to see what that's gonna look like.
Can we have numbers of how much is actual, we're getting hit with litigation on?
I can
That
ask
was
Aegis to
really
send us
helpful.
over a
We just got a summary of cases. We're putting together a summary of cases.
Yeah, not
which ones
detailed,
are in
just an
litigation.
overall summary.
Okay, well, you can see if the past rounds.
Well, I don't know if that's gonna reduce the litigation. Really don't.
But
I mean, people are gonna get into that anyway.
No, but see,
Question whether or not they win.
so look, anyone can sue anyone.
Mhm.
That's nonsense when somebody says I'm gonna sue you. But to win is a whole nother game. right? And if you look at the way the sidewalks are, right? I mean, in some areas, it's going this way, it's going that way. You cannot, if you're in a wheelchair or walker, forget it. You cannot navigate a lot of these sidewalks. You can't. And I'm surprised there's some areas where kids just fly off because literally the sidewalks are leaning that much. That's what I'm talking about, right? But you know, for all the other stuff, I'm gonna go and sue us all you want. In fact, we're gonna counter sue, right? Because it's a nonsense. I'm just saying that's gonna happen anyways. It happens everywhere. Everyone wants a quick buck. You gotta win.
Have you got a good way of breaking out kind of your time that you spend on, I'm trying to track all the costs that would associate with the
Well,
payouts, the insurance.
do you know
everything
what we've never billed you for
Uh,
is, and it's in our contract? Do you know how many depositions Russ has had to sit in on?
Meet a guy tomorrow.
No, seriously.
but that's part of that.
He has, but we don't bill you for that.
I know.
You know.
But what
He's got a few more coming up, as a matter
I'm
of
just trying
fact.
to quantify to
Yeah.
Tom's point. I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure out the
our
buckets.
hard time is fairly minimal. I mean,
Yeah.
we usually get some questions about ownership or service, that kind of stuff. We try to stay out of it. We'll, a couple hours on each case.
Once it comes in, we send it straight to insurance and we copy counsel. And if there's any questions, the claim adjuster may have some questions once
Yeah.
it's assigned.
Insurance does the majority of the work.
But yeah,
Yeah.
their counsel, they may ask us some questions here and there.
Yeah.
But
it's
I would
not-
like to know how many won, how many we lost.
Well, we
what
can
that
definitely
cost.
get that breakout
I
for
think that's
you.
important.
Mhm.
And listen, again, we might decide to say, you know what, we'll increase a little bit, but we're not gonna go overboard on it.
Right.
Fine. It just helps to have that data in front of you to go, then you look at it and go, oh my God, did you see this?
Yeah, they'll
That's
give
all
you a
they're
breakdown of how many have been filed, how many are in litigation, how many have not reached litigation, and how many have settled.
I can see it going up, just in general, from whenever I'm looking around, it's.
Not getting any better.
Yeah, and it's
No,
everywhere.
it's not.
It's not.
It,
just
yeah,
here.
it's not just here, it's everywhere, but I mean,
There's also the non-quant, there's the direct cost associated, there's the indirect cost of how many people aren't able to use the sidewalks that are going out running or biking.
They're running on the
Or
street.
doing it in the middle of the street.
mhm.
You know, God forbid what happens to one person who gets hit. It's not our fault because they're out running in the street, but they're running in the street because they couldn't run on the sidewalk. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
There's some doozies out there.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I
I
mean,
hit them on my bike.
Yeah.
you know, the time that we're spending in depositions as well. Like I said, Russ has, how many do you have coming up? I know one was just scheduled. And then there's two more they're asking for dates
One, I
for.
think they just canceled. One we just found out wasn't our property, thank God. Like I said, I'm supposed to meet someone tomorrow
Mhm.
to look at one, which I think is the one down there at Water Street.
Yeah,
And then we got the one at the hotel.
yep. And then I have
These-
two.
These are all sidewalks.
There's any way you can
Yeah.
quantify that.
They're all sidewalks.
I'm less interested. Any number greater than zero is something that means we get fixed. And if you're telling me that it's a quarter of a standard,
Mhm.
then really what I want to know is, all right, we need to do a survey of where all of the where we're at risk because it's greater than a quarter of an inch.
You've already got that, don't you?
Yeah, we do two inspections every year. But what I want to ask, because you're looking at the quarter of an inch, right? Or just the cracked, but you're not looking at the ones that have the
Yeah,
hump.
no, those are the ones. we're looking
Oh,
at
you're
now,
looking at
yeah.
those now too?
So We've done North Village.
There's another thing, you can
Yeah.
have a panel that's a quarter of an inch this way. You have another panel that's a quarter of an inch this way, that ain't good. So even though they meet the standard, you kind of, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You can't have anybody, people are gonna trip, even, you grind all this stuff, and also when you grind it, it's extremely smooth.
Mhm.
So that's a whole other issue, so grinding is fine, but it's.
And it's the
Right.
most cost effective to do it, but unfortunately you can only grind them so many times before they have to be replaced.
The old penny behind the fuse.
Yep.
Well, and then, okay, and then you look at the
Still get a
quarter of an inch,
Yeah.
and then you look at the size of the roots nearby. Might as well fix it because it's a quarter inch today. A month from now, it's not a quarter of an inch, so there's a
Well,
lot of factors.
This does give me my other question in the budgeting of this. Are we seeing an uptick in the number of trees we have to replace? Because I gotta imagine there's only so many times you can cut tree roots to replace a panel.
We fortunately have not lost, we've lost one tree that I can think of that got blew over by the hurricane and we had second roots on
Okay.
since day one.
So when you cut roots, replace a panel,
Are you tagging those or somehow recording?
well, is that,
With the exception of a coil root, we had to remove about, I think it was a dozen trees. There were sycamores, less than 3 feet of green space.
Oh, yeah,
Remember that was
it's-
like 4
that
or 5
was-
years ago?
that-
Yeah.
I didn't even want to touch a root because I knew it was going to. But I mean, just your standard oaks, we haven't lost one.
But are you recording which trees you're cutting roots on as you do?
Panels replaced, we're cutting roots.
It-
So
it
I mean,
just
why the
seems-
panels really replaced.
It just seems with some of these trees are they're getting so much bigger, so much faster. That these
And they're gonna get bigger.
what you're saying is a 1/4 inch growth in 6 months, it's gonna be 1/4 inch growth in 3 months next time. It's crazy.
So the other thing that tomorrow, actually, we're going out with United and going through the whole community. And we're going to be looking at separate things. One would be any enhancements, focal points, entryways, stuff like that. We're also going to be looking at anything throughout the community that just has not been replaced over the years. And not to say you want to replace it, but it wasn't replaced, it died, or this is dead, it needs to be replaced. We're going to be looking at those things as well and making 2 separate kind of lists to present to you all with if anything. You may not want to do anything with either one of them, or you might say, yeah, we'll do this, that, and the other, but at least you'll have that information going into this.
One other thing too, we're gonna compile and like to get it done sooner than later, but a lot of these trees are 25, 30-ish years old. Especially like in North Village, you can, there's a bunch of them, maybe 50, 60 trees at least. That aren't dead, but are got maybe a year's life left in them, 2 years, so.
Gotten kind of gnarly looking, huh?
How are we assessing that? Because we had.
We've just been replacing as they die, to be honest with you.
No, but I mean, how are we assessing? Are you guys actually getting an arborist? Because I know we had Brett who was certified.
United's out here now. They do have an arborist on staff.
Okay.
So we'll be anything that Russ tags that, hey, this is iffy, we'll
That's
have them
part of
look at it.
That's part of their scope to do that. Okay.
We'll have them look at it and say yes or no.
Okay.
That, hey, you got a little time left, or no, this one's got to go.
Now, Russ, what about West Village? I mean, they're older than North Village.
There's some.
West Village is older.
I'm pretty sure they did North Village right after celebration.
No.
They did like Ellen and West Village.
West Village was here right after.
West Village and Lake Evelyn are all considered part of phase 1. North Village was phase 2.
Wow, you were asleep in the early days, huh, Russ?
Hey, he was just doing irrigation. He didn't care where it was.
That's the
answer.
hey, are those wayfinding signs ours too?
Those what?
Wayfinding, when it says main village this way, hotel that way.
Yes.
Yes.
They just actually replaced all of
These what? Well, we're in the
they
process.
replaced all those last year.
Noticing.
All the poles.
What's wrong with it?
I don't.
He just doesn't like them.
I like them.
Oh, you just don't like it.
We got GPS now.
The directional, yeah.
We had this discussion 2 years ago.
I think it's part of the aesthetics of the community.
There's literally, I think it's 7 poles. When you're going towards campus and they're all right, and I'm like, no one reads that crap.
Yeah,
No
I
one
mean,
reads it.
they're yours, you can take them out, but I think the premise was they're just aesthetics to make that celebration look, that
Oh, the
community.
celebration book didn't have those signs.
It's-
I can tell you the signs, I can tell you which signs were not here until about maybe 6
Are we
years
talking
ago,
about the same ones?
where it said.
The ones we just did
it says
years
parking.
ago.
The directional?
Oh, no.
No, we didn't.
The,
do that.
no, the ones that show the parking behind.
No, he did
Oh.
talk about the green signs that you come down. like,
They're all
say,
the directionals, like this way, this
right by
way.
the church, it says hotel this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to keep them, celebration company.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
that's the one.
Yeah.
It's part of the agreement.
And they have to be Tom's green.
Time out, what agreement?
They're already there.
With
Well,
T,
it's tough.
is it with TCC or?
All right, little
We
history,
already did that.
little history lesson.
That
Get
we
there.
spent a good bit of it too.
So in order, when the Celebration Company was actually in almost every chapter of the charter, right? In order to combine them into one chapter, so that hopefully one day they can just pull that out. There was negotiation with them to go ahead and say what they can and can't keep. So we went through a lot of stuff, and they gave them a lot of stuff. But they asked for those signs to remain until after Island Village was complete, and then those can go away. That was the agreement. So
Chapter 18.
And we do spend money on them. Whenever they need to be replaced or the vinyl
they
needs
can't
to
be
be,
replaced, so they're always like fixing. And
yeah,
everything.
fixing or the vinyl needs to be redone. That,
So let's back up for a second again, just for purposes of tonight. Everybody does need to get capital project suggestions to you by the next meeting. By the next meeting, are you also gonna have, usually Russ has a list of, here's your suggestions as far as things that.
are you talking about the next meeting, like
The next
March,
workshop, I'm
the
sorry.
workshop?
The next
Yes.
workshop, yes.
We're gonna have this completed.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put another tab like I did last year.
Right.
With all of your capital projects that you did last year, remember? Separate tab, and then what staff comes up with down here of the projects that he has on his list to do. Mark will get his input like we did last year, and I'll have a separate tab up here that says annual projects.
So I'm seeing, in my mind, I'm seeing really 4 buckets of capital stuff that we need to think about this year. Number 1 is gonna be whatever you guys come up with of stuff we need to fix up,
Mhm.
things like that.
Staff recommendations.
Yep.
Board recommendations.
Number 2 is board recommendations of new stuff. Number 3 is board, what I think Tom was asking before, stuff that was multi-year, like the benches and all that we started this year, but we're finishing next year.
Painting.
The things painting, things that
Yep.
we need to carry over to finish. And the 4th one, which is kind of a beast into itself, is gonna be whatever we're doing for community center type of stuff that we're gonna be pulling out of reserve now until we get to a bond issue. So that last one, that's almost a separate discussion, because, we've talked about Mark's got something on the table for about $120,000 we haven't acted on for an engineering study. We've got the charrette that we notionally approved that you guys are discussing, but we kind of know what that cost is gonna be. We got a project manager scope that Dave and Jan were gonna be getting together and putting something out on the street to solicit that. And then just kind of general staff time. I mean, those 4 things right there into that's half. I'm gonna put a tag and say it's at least $500,000 that we're gonna be pulling out of reserve this next fiscal year, pending it being rolled into a bond retroactively if a bond happens, then we'd be able to recapture those costs. So I mean, I'll throw my opinion on the table is I think any big new capital projects, if we're serious about the community center project, I don't know that we're really doing a lot of other stuff that we haven't already committed to, of things that were the multi-year that we started last year that we're finishing up this year, or stuff that you guys are identifying of things that need to get replaced, fixed, kind of reserve improvement type of things. I will say personally, I'm not bringing anything to the table this year because in my mind, any of the other stuff is going to go towards community center monies that we're going to have to lay out and pay out of reserves to capture later. So I put that in thought.
I can tell you staff's recommendations are gonna be the sidewalk, some landscape enhancements, just because of the stuff that's died, over the years. But again, that's gonna be a board decision. It's more aesthetic than anything. The sidewalk, not aesthetic.
Yep.
That's gonna be a recommendation that I personally feel, even with the staff that you have, even if we added 10 more people to your staff, I still would recommend you hire a company to come in, get it done, one fell swoop, and then let your staff maintain it from there.
There's liability and costs associated with that.
Because it's still going to happen and you're still going to need staff to maintain it.
Yeah.
But to be able to start with a clean slate and go, okay, now we can chase it and do that. Then I think that's the better option. It's going to save you more money in the long run with settlements and that type of thing.
And then maybe you had 3-4 year projects.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. We're going to give you some
Or-
options.
yeah.
1 year, if you want to split it into 2 year. I think going beyond 2 years, I think you're missing the point.
Right, because but I guess what's gonna happen is then we're like, okay, now we're gonna have.
You're back to square one.
Right, it's what we're doing now.
Yeah.
The sidewalk piece, you guys are already on track
Yep.
to bring that back. Is that, so that's the next meeting, the next workshop, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
the sidewalk
Yep.
presentation?
And those are really not big. I don't necessarily know that the landscape portion is going to be big. I know the sidewalk's probably going to be big.
So,
But-
so landscaping. We're out of money on landscape.
Oh, you wanna know exactly what we got? Cause I don't know what we got.
He's on top of his budget.
Sidewalk, everything. I got exactly
Yep.
what we spent.
No, I know that, but like right now, if you
I
wanted.
think I got
Tom's point is we're
75,000.
halfway through the
Yeah.
fiscal year and we've already blown.
Right, so I have
the
75,000
miscellaneous
left. For
Mhm.
some areas, that's great, for some areas it isn't.
Right.
There's a difference between like the trails, there's walkable trails, they're all cement. A lot of those areas, a lot of the wild stuff has been blown out, people riding bikes on it, so it's all blown out. There's some minor repairs here and there. I know that we also want to look at the alleyway stuff. A lot of stuff are 2 or 3 bushes, not redesigning anything, just keeping the designs already there. Just going onesie twosies on what, stuff is degraded, filling that. Because we really don't want to create a lot of new landscaping gardens. That's not the intent. The intent is for sustainability and to go ahead and maintain it very easily.
Well, and the stuff that was there that just got let to die.
That and sometimes the wrong things were planted. It was obvious like the first week, all right, we did this because it wasn't going to take in that area. There is a lot of that. There is, even though they replaced probably about 75% of the grass that needed replacement on the boulevard, there's still more grass to get replaced. If you go across where Marisol is, the ground is doing that, and it's all dead, So there's, in front of Celebration Point. I have no idea why they put Bermuda down instead of St. Augustine, but they did. So of course we see the garden weeds.
That's not ours.
Wait, so the median,
We have no, Caesarea installed at all. It's all Celebration Place or Point.
so the roundabout and the median is Celebration Point?
I was a median.
And the rear entrance, same thing.
But that I would think,
You can tell the difference in the sod. You can tell what's theirs and what's ours.
So they're maintaining it.
I did not know that.
So we just said,
Oh, my
well,
goodness.
money.
There you go. Looks like crap.
Meeting adjourned.
So there are some areas that'll take time. We're trying to identify, the top things. I think that's what they're gonna do, the drive-through. I can't attend that one. But they're gonna go ahead and say, okay, these are the ones that, boy, we gotta fix this. There's some areas that are like, we gotta fix this. It's grass.
And we're going to have pictures along with these
Yeah.
So
proposals.
will you guys have that for next workshop?
Yeah, our meeting's tomorrow, and then what we're gonna do is compile that pictures with proposals. I'm gonna send it to Tom, let him see it. Let him see it and see what he approves, and then we'll probably have him one more walkthrough with Tom, because he can't join tomorrow. And then finalize it.
So I asked all other board members to do this. In the areas you live. If you notice in CCD areas, because even though we drive around and see everything. We might miss some stuff, right? It's a big community. Bring it up, email Angel,
Mhm.
take a picture even better. Because this isn't something that. It's not something I'm approving, we're making the list.
Yeah.
There, the board's gonna decide.
It's
yay
coming
or
to the
nay, or
board.
What's the focus on it? We are gonna grade each area that we have, but we're
So
thinking.
if you come up with a list and we'll make it up 25 different things, is the intent you'll have 25 different prices and we're gonna rack and stack?
So
Prioritization.
we're,
Mm-hmm.
no. It's not really the pricing. It's areas that need the most concern, number one, areas that we can wait a little bit, number two, pie in the sky dreams.
Right.
We'll have those things, and then we can go ahead and say, okay. Then we can go ahead and say, okay,
Well, that's my point, is you're gonna do a recommended prioritization.
I'll
of
do
25
that,
things.
but then it's still.
It's still, it still needs to come.
Yeah.
Still
out
a
here.
discussion to
Yeah.
go ahead and go, you know what, I think this is.
I just wanna make sure there's gonna be a line for every.
Just make it easier
Every
for
small
discussion.
project you talk about, you're putting a price tag against it, that we're gonna lump all of that.
Will we have
stuff.
prices by then?
Yeah, that's the plan. I
Okay,
mean,
all
we're
right,
gonna
then,
talk
we have
to,
so-
we're doing it for United, but that's the purpose of this is by your next one.
Okay.
Which I think is plenty enough time for us to be able to compile the information, put it together, give it to Tom. He's gonna rank it red
Yep.
down to green, and there will be prices next to it. So that's the goal.
Well, and if it gets sent out,
Stay within budget.
when it gets sent out, if you think that
Spend a lot of money next year.
it should be a red instead of orange or yellow instead of orange. Bring that up so we can kind of get that a little tighter.
Yeah.
And then we see where we go with it.
Okay, so those are the two major staff items, are the sidewalks and
Because we just replaced the structures, we don't need to do those. There's no other major projects. We just did the painting. We did the painting, right, of all the light poles.
Not all of it. yet.
How many, are we finishing them
Still got all
this
the
fiscal
small
year?
ones like Water Street and all that.
But are we
Come back and
finishing-
do those.
Are we finishing this fiscal year, or is this gonna
Yeah.
carry over?
Why not?
Okay, so those will be done, so we don't really have any
Those are
major,
not the B1 light poles. We're gonna start that here soon. We're gonna do 10 at a time.
okay,
So we've got 10 new fixtures.
so we're not gonna have any light pole painting in next year's.
Not
Not
for
for
the
out,
company, because all the ones that need a lift that we,
the one-offs you guys will continue to do, but as far as a major initiative, like where the guy was
Done.
down the avenue
yeah.
a month ago.
Nope.
That's what
They gotta come back and they still got, I don't know, 100 poles maybe or
Okay.
so.
But we're not budgeting for that.
We've already
Yeah.
got, the money's already there.
So
Actually, that'll be for next year's, they're actually going to bill us in 25 for a certain amount of poles, believe it or not.
yeah.
No, they were fine with
He
it.
worked out a great deal
Yeah.
with them.
Okay.
So
Just by the way.
I have a question on the Duke Energy boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we with that? 'Cause those have to get painted.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because we have
Only
the,
a half hour asking.
Yeah, that was great. Yes, well, that's
get
good.
that vendor to come out and
They're not gonna touch those boxes.
No, time out though.
Nobody will,
What
but-
we're asking is if part of Duke's upgrades, they're working the transformer, are they going to return the transformer to its original station?
We've asked them many times if they come and
so
paint the boxes
No.
or let us.
No, time.
We've got nowhere with them.
I know, alright, so, cause I've done the same thing, there's one group out of North Carolina, which is where Duke is located, that'll do it.
And I think we've already contacted them too.
Yeah, you gave us the
Yeah.
contact,
Gave us the
Yeah.
information.
and they
So
won't touch
We
them.
even gave them a picture of about 5 boxes that look really bad. Did the whole spiel and just.
So let
got no-
me make a suggestion, just to pause, just in the interest of time. These are the individual projects that over the next 30 days, let's get the staff and really, we don't need to figure out each one of these tonight.
So energy,
work these
Duke
over the
Energy
next
box.
But, well, that's part of, the question we're asking, to know whether it's a valid item to put on here. So like, I've got bollard lights on here.
That's,
Right, so
that's
I
gonna
want-
be on there, because if you remember last year, we did a certain amount for X amount of bollards. We're gonna still, that's one of the multi-year things that we talked about.
Yeah.
So the bollards will be on there with furniture, and now
Yeah.
painting will
Yeah.
not
Right,
probably.
I had,
To your project.
I had transformer painting on here, asking if we just saw Duke come through and they wanted to go do all these upgrades, can we not insist that they paint their transformers once they're done?
Okay,
I've
they
got,
paint them other places. That's what I don't understand.
yeah, some's not quite. My irrigation clocks, is that
Mhm.
something that needed upgrading also?
We're good on that.
we just did
For that.
50,000 last year, if you remember, and bought all that Maxicom had to have, but I told you guys we needed to start putting money aside, because
That
at
was-
some point,
That was buying out the old type of.
that's
clocks.
right.
So we were starting to budget, the discussion last year was we
Yep.
weren't putting it in this year's budget, but we're gonna put it into the 25.
You need to
budget.
start putting a little bit of money aside, because at some point, you're going to have to replace your irrigation.
If I remember right, it was $200 and something thousand you were estimating to replace them all.
And then aerators, do you have something ready to go for the next set of ponds or?
We already
Your
got the
RF
quotes.
what?
We already got
You have the quotes, but I don't want to go by those
That's
quotes.
a bad one.
Yeah, I think
Well,
if you choose a new pond vendor, or you don't even have to use Solitude, we can get quotes from other companies for aerators, and that's my plan.
But the bigger question we'd already asked, and I thought I got the answer from 2 or 3 meetings ago, was even though these would be the next 10 to do,
We don't need all 10.
they weren't above the threshold of really actually needing them.
At the time, I did a site audit
Yeah.
of all the
Yeah.
bonds and
Yep.
all of them looked great at the time. I'm personally, on this one particular issue, I'm not gonna make any suggestions on Aerators, we've already.
He's
purchased.
against aerators.
Well, you can't prove to me that an aerator is gonna keep from getting duckweed.
It's not.
And we've already spent what,
It,
$200,000? We
almost.
spent 20,000
Aerators
in the
are
last
not
20
going
years.
to change your pond. It's a multi-prong thing.
It's not just one thing.
It's not. It's the treatment, it's aerators, it's a number of things that keeps the water moving and keeps it doing. Aerators, no. If you just put an aerator by itself, it's just aesthetics. That's all it is. But we can get I'm gonna get multiple bids for that for you guys to look at.
I think the challenge is, it's not the aerators aren't working, I think the aerators are working. The challenge is if you're not out here to treat the ponds on a regular basis, or when you spend half a day walking around town trying to point out what has to get fixed, and 2 months later, stop me if you heard this before. 2 months later, they don't show up to go ahead and like. do it.
That's not, I've heard this before.
No, they were
That's
out,
what this is about.
they were
Well,
out here yesterday. all
now
day. They
they're out
stopped at
here.
the office there.
They're like gangbusters now because I sent and they know we're going out to RP, so they're working on the dredging, they working on the weeding.
So let me put this back to a budget process question. With the pace you're moving for getting a pond RFP out,
Mhm.
will you be able to make a recommendation to us award a pond contract, and then have that new contractor come in and do an assessment if they think we need aerators all in time for the budget? Or is that gonna be too late?
Before May, yes.
Okay.
Because you have to approve your budget in May, so yes. Are you gonna be able to approve a pond vendor and we can get them out here to do an original assessment? Yes. Before May,
So that would be my suggestion. If we've got time to do an aeration study to kind of bank off the one that we've already got, then I'm not convinced that we need any more, but
Yeah.
if we want to put them through that drill, let's put them. through that
We
drill.
should definitely, yeah, they should definitely be able to get that accomplished before May.
Okay.
Yep. What else you got?
So I do want to talk for a second, like going back on the community center one, what other costs do we think we're gonna have in 25 if we continue to press on this? That we need to think about. We got Mark's study just for the K5 lot, and that's the full engineering study for that was about 100,000. 120.
No. It was close to 150.
With all the subs, yeah. So,
Oh, that's right, when you added in the subs, it's 150, that's right, the original one you got was like 150.
Probably surveys of both the ball field and the school lot.
So you're at 160
somewhere in that range, right, you know,
just for engineering.
bringing subs. That was just the K5 parcels.
That was just K5.
I mean, I'm thinking, what do we need to do to prep and get ready to move on the K5 parcels? What do we also need to do to prep and get ready on the K8 parcel, if that makes sense? Because we're gonna have to do.
I think, do we have
similar
any
type of thing.
parcels?
Questions.
Do we have any parcels?
Well, that would be the other major one, would be the K8 parcel.
Okay.
So the update there, just so everybody's aware, Jan and I talked a little bit. I did get a conversation with the school district after our last meeting. And I will say reinvigorated where some stall points had hit. That I should be getting a call no later than Friday. They may be able to move as quickly on a letter of intent. Their next school district meeting is the same night as our March meeting. I don't know if they're gonna be able to move that fast on a letter of intent or not, but I threw that out there as a question to them. Should answer by this week. So separately, I want to make sure everybody's aware and is okay with, if they come back on Friday and say, hey, we're ready to, again, this is just for a draft. This is not that we're committing to anything. But that everybody would be okay with Jan and I working that draft and then come back to us to review and approve potentially as soon as our next meeting or possibly the 8th. But either way, that's
Yeah,
very
can't-
positive indications of movement.
yeah,
We-
the concern I have, and I talked to you, is that the board has to, I mean, if we're gonna put together a letter of
To vote
intent
on it.
or a proposed structure of what we think we're doing, the board really needs to look at that and have input here before the school board agrees to something that we don't know what they're agreeing to. Because there's been, you know, a couple different ideas. I mean, I think it sounds like now from what you told me would be a joint use agreement, that they would donate the property in exchange for using a portion of the building.
The plan is exactly what we've been talking with them for 6 months. They just haven't moved on it for 5 months now. But it would be
Okay,
so what I am expecting based on my conversation from them would be 2 separate documents. The first one would be a letter of intent that would simply highlight and tie us to a future joint use agreement document. That letter of intent would outline any high level conditions that they would need met, safety and security type of stuff for the lot, any things that they would want out of that, such as use of the gym space or any other space that's in it that they feel that they would want to have in. And then a notional timeline that, hey, we would have 24 months to execute on that. And obviously there'd be other conditions we have to pass, whatever county stuff would have to go in. Sure, yeah. Obviously any TCC approvals, things like that would all be in the letter of intent. We have to do all those things before they would actually transfer the land over.
But you can't vote on that tonight.
No.
No, but I mean, I
No.
think we need a little more time because I'd want tax council to give us I've talked to them a couple of times, but we do need the bond council to get on board to actually give us some, opinions on joint use.
Yeah.
Not formal, but at least in writing that they've approved this structure will
And
work,
again,
this timing will work.
if the school district can have it done, but I'm not optimistic they'll have it done by the 26th. They'll be ready for the 26th. But I do want to make sure that the board is okay that we're engaging in those conversations between now and if it's the April meeting or the May meeting. I don't think it should take as long as May. I'm really not targeted by the April one.
But this needs to be on the agenda for this meeting.
March meeting.
The March meeting
Yeah.
for you all to vote on it, because we can't engage in anything unless the board votes, and you can't vote tonight because it's a workshop.
And we don't have parameters. I mean, I know we have general parameters, but putting them in writing and giving everybody the opportunity to look at it and getting it on the agenda is important.
Yeah.
Because this is sort of a
Well,
first
and there
step
could
to
be-
say that, hey, we may be imposing assessments for this plan. This is the first real major step.
Well, we also, like, they put a letter of intent, or I have questions, they could go back and forth,
You could.
Yes.
right? But, so, help me out here, because I want to understand this. A letter of intent is not an agreement.
No.
It's just a letter of intent.
It doesn't tie us to anything.
For them.
Well,
But we don't want to put something
yeah,
out there
it
that we
kinda
say,
does.
well, we intended to do that, but the board really thought maybe
Yeah.
we should do
So-
this.
the intent is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I'm concerned about. What I'm concerned about is, I'm concerned about having that letter of intent. We'll move forward with it. I guess I want to know, when is the agreement like ironclad? Because, we have as a community have gone down, I know it's also a county, not a school district. For me, it's
Yeah.
one after
like
the
that.
other. We're at the last moment of change, so before we have expenditures, before we have anything, I really want to, at what point
Well,
do we say we're at the point of no return? And they're also at the point of no return. Not just
And
us.
that would probably formulating we're gonna have to have some sort of, whether it's a ground lease from them or they turn the property over to us, we're gonna have a closing period where we do environmental inspections and surveys and everything else if we acquire the property. If they give us
that's
the
what I'm
property
saying.
versus a
There is
ground
something
lease.
that they're out of either party's control, that, hey, whether it's a county approval or a TCC approval or an environmental approval, these are just things that have to be met. But we can't say that they're gonna be met until they actually go and happen. There are other things, you're absolutely right, that we would need to make commitments and they would need to make commitments.
But
that
that's
we
part
should
of
be
the,
going into.
that's part of the structure, it is our intent that we're gonna buy it, so then we do a purchase and sale contract that as part of the closing, we sign the joint use agreement. And that
I'm
would have to be.
interested to see when school district says joint use. Then it's to see what joint use means, what their interpretation of it is, what our understanding is. Because I think that for me is very, very important, because if we can't use 70% of the community center during the school day, that's a deal breaker for the community, because then we're paying.
So,
for
So do we need to put on I'm thinking for the agenda for the 26th, to put terms and conditions that we're putting out as kind of the non-negotiables. Hey, here's stuff that we hard-clad iron want out of ours, and here's things that we're thinking of, but we're negotiable on. That we're talking about doing at our next board meeting, that then Jan and I can take to them and start firing
I
bombs back
think
and
we should
forth.
iron out some specifics. I mean, do we want to own the property? Are we looking for a ground lease? I mean, we don't have any we talked sort of the amorphous joint use agreement, which is a great way of acquiring the property at no cost in exchange for
Well,
giving them something.
well,
But we should talk
we-
about
What we
specific.
talked about 6 months ago, when we initially talked about this in a meeting was, and I engaged the school district based on that, was the joint use agreement was based on a land transfer that
Okay.
they would not charge us.
Mhm.
The backup to that they're not really that hot on because they would like the joint use agreement to having some shared space, is that they would just outright sell us the land.
Okay.
They are more appealed right now to the idea, if there's a way to get a shared use agreement where they can get some amount of use of the center for expansion on their gym during the school hours, that's what they're interested in.
Why don't they initiate an LOI? Are they prepared to do that?
They can't. Sure, they could, but
Somebody's gotta start.
that's
Yeah.
my point is we
We should-
were the ones that initially approached them with the idea to start this thing. So my thought was we would be the ones to start the LOI because we were the ones to fire the first file.
So we should put on our March agenda, like, these are the basic terms, here's a draft of what we think the terms should be for the board to look at and say, yeah, we agree with this, we don't agree with this, we want this, and then.
We've got a better idea, I think, of what we would propose and how that building would fit into the grand scheme of things as opposed to them. I mean, they're receiving what we're putting out there of, hey, there may be this opportunity to rebuild the center, but the specifics of it, we haven't talked because we haven't come to a point where they were ready to talk on it. So, okay, so we'll have that as an agenda item for.
Well, is that, I mean, Dave, are you comfortable, would you rather have them say, what is it you need?
Well, this is the most cumbersome negotiation that hasn't happened
Yes.
yet.
It is, it's,
Got Broa, there essentially with their holding area out to.
and we don't have an appraisal of the land to know what
We've got a
value.
master
We don't even
landscape.
know how big the building's gonna be. in terms of square
So-
And what was the point
Say
of
it out.
looking at the master plan architects, whatever we call those people, you know,
Planning people.
we're just going to assume we're putting a community center there and,
So.
you know, it's like the pieces are so disjointed.
And usually at this point. That's probably why you end up having a project manager.
Right.
To lay out all the different steps that happen in a particular order, timelines and everything else. To actually get us.
Well, the reality is, we're a project manager of any regular development's gonna have a cleaner job because he's buying the land, his client owns the, or his client's buying the land, his client owns the land, he's building on the land, and that's it. That's not what we're proposed for. Not what we're conceptualizing here because we've got a Crow component, we've got a school district component, we've got a Mark had a meeting to sit on tomorrow based on the discussion we had last meeting about the K-5 field as well, and their willingness to allow us to do a
Yeah,
land use
well,
agreement out there as well.
that
So-
example that I gave you didn't have specifics. It didn't say, 25% is gonna be dedicated to this or
But-
this much square footage to that or anything like that. It was all generality.
Yes, this is, some of this is dependent on the value of the land. What is it the school wants back for donating the land? You know, is it $1 million cost that we're gonna have to give them back in time? You know, are they looking for $10 million? I mean, we don't know what that is that we're,
I mean, that
He's
was
sharing the
fair
use.
market value appraisal.
Not
Most-
necessarily,
yeah,
they could
it-
ask whatever
But
they
it-
wanted.
It's funny, if the school district says we want a joint use agreement, right? And they wanna use 50% of the gym space, right, during that week. Then that's how we can equate usage in terms of
value.
what they expect to get back.
Yeah, it's just compensation.
Right.
yeah,
But we need to know that,
we need, yeah, and we don't have a,
so they would
That-
have to
that's a
figure
little-
that out.
And that's where I say they've only started, the hang up for the past couple months was they're switching lawyers. One lawyer had one question, the new lawyer came in, abandoned the first question, went to a separate question, which now that separate question seems to have been asked and answered within their own staff. So now they're at a point where they're notionally gonna tell me on Friday, hey, we're ready to come to the table and start talking about this formally. And I wanna make sure that we're ready to start receiving and talking with them formally and whatever the board wants Jan and I to engage them with. But separately, you're right. I'm looking at FY 25, it's not just this, it's what are the, from a budgeting perspective, what are the costs we're associating with the next fiscal year of things that we're gonna have to pull out of reserves if we're gonna move forward on these things, because there's gonna be engineering studies, there's gonna be project management stuff, there's gonna be charrette stuff.
And it, honestly, we can budget for it, but it's gonna be very hard to estimate. Because we're dealing with the school district. So if we have a question, we wanna get an answer 2 months.
The school district, I think, is, from a cost perspective, I don't think it's gonna be a big deal. The big cost.
I think the agreement is gonna be a big deal. I think the agreement is absolutely gonna be a big deal. I think it's gonna draw out.
No, it's gonna be important to the process, I agree with you, but there's not gonna be a significant cost relative to the rest of the stuff we're talking about. Of doing the joint use agreement with the school district. I mean, we're gonna spend some time of Jan's time to do that.
Legal impression.
But you're talking $150,000 March time just to do the engineering study on the K-5 school.
And then acquisition costs. I mean, we will have to do appraisals, environmental, soils tests, all that other good stuff before we take the
Yes.
property. So there's a whole
Whole slew of things.
things that would need to be done
Ah.
whenever we get to that acquisition, whether we wait. I mean, the good news is if we can wait until the time we issue bonds, we can tie it all in with the bond cost. But if the school board wants to turn it over, we may have to do that sooner.
And that would be a cost in terms of taxes. on us. But then,
It wouldn't have been, it wouldn't be anything with both governments.
Okay.
We shouldn't have any
Alright.
impact other than the due diligence costs, closing costs.
So. Do we want to, again, from a timing perspective? We don't need to have the answers tonight, but there are absolutely costs in 25 we're going to incur if we move forward on this. We've hit a point where it's not onesie twosie thing, where we're going to start hitting 6-figure numbers quickly on some of the major components of things that need to go on. So that's where I'm trying to get my head around what are those anticipated costs over the next year of engineering studies, of outside bond council things and all the other stuff there, project management time. I mean, do we want to talk about a separate? I don't know what we really have racked up for our upcoming meeting. Is there enough time in our meeting? We would just do this as a discussion. I'm trying to figure out kind of mechanically how we want to have this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to, because again, you can't vote on anything here, so it's gonna have to.
No, I'm not suggesting doing it now, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure out, do we do a separate meeting just for this? Is there enough to talk about in this topic alone, that that's just a meeting into itself? Do we roll it into a next regular monthly meeting?
It might be better to have a separate meeting, because I think everybody's not clear on what all is going into this, unless I'm misunderstanding the
But
room.
it helped to have a meeting with the school board, and I haven't talked to the school board since.
Yeah, I haven't.
October, so we're November, so it'll be helpful to be able to talk to them and find out what it is they're talking about, what their new attorney, I mean, I know what Frank was looking at.
Right.
But I don't know what their new attorney is thinking, and so it might be helpful.
Jan would be able to quantify it from a legal.
And that's what I'm asking, is to make
Yeah.
sure everybody's okay with Jan.
everybody in the room can go ahead and discuss.
That was my intent. I just want to
Okay,
make sure everybody's
thank you.
okay with Jan spending time doing into that.
Well, yeah, once you guys authorize her to do that
Yeah.
at your next
Yeah,
meeting,
I got it.
you can definitely authorize her to do whatever you want her to do, but I think it may warrant a special meeting
There's gonna be,
Yeah.
on it.
Well,
there's gonna be several special
Yeah.
meetings on this. This is
Yeah.
a big enough initiative. We're gonna be,
I think we can do this part of the next meeting as far as going on, this
Oh, yeah.
special
Yeah.
meetings, that's down the road.
Mm-hmm.
We got information to
Okay.
gather first.
So the next meeting, we'll talk about where we're proceeding from. In the meantime, I guess if the school board wants to go forward, I guess it would be go forward, ask them if, again, I'd be surprised if they bring something up at their March meeting, that seems quick. But if they give an approval to go forward, then our next meeting, we're great that we can jump in and start
After Tuesday.
responding.
yeah, well, like I said, I'll know more Friday once it gets fall. So, okay. So back to the larger question though, I'm still, for budgeting purposes for 25, I'm gonna say again, and Dave, I don't know if you're the right guy to kind of help us here or what. I mean, what are the costs over the next fiscal year that we need to start thinking about?
We have a ballpark, but it is interminable because we don't know after each successive iteration of community engagement and workshops if it's complete, or there needs to be another one scheduled to tackle a different thing that comes up during that first.
You talking about as far as the charrettes?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking outside of the context of charrettes, I'm talking about other consultants and stuff.
So right now you've got engineering already, like Mark said, just for the
Yeah.
K-5 is about 160,000. You've got a project manager that you're looking to hire. You've got Dix Heights contract.
Bond council.
Bond council.
2025, just to make sure we're covered on any issues.
What
Acquisition.
you need in order to determine that the K-8 lot, if we make an assumption for a second that the school district has agreed to a usage agreement there, what would it take for you to put together a full engineering quote? So we would know what you need for the K-8 lot.
Just to put together a quote.
Just so we know what that plug number is, like 165 lot for the K-5. what would the K8, what would it take for you to put together for the K8?
Probably hard to sign up 200.
Yeah, it's important to get this in the budget, so it's very open what the costs are.
But at a time.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, have fun. You're going on vacation, right?
Oh, yeah, that's tomorrow.
Oh.
Tonight is lacrosse game
Oh, good luck.
Where's that at?
Are you the goalie?
at the high school.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Right out back.
I gotta go put on my cheerleading outfit.
I missed the face. Enjoy it.
I'll take pictures.
We don't wanna, we wanna stop and reconvene over there?
Sure.
Watch you be a cheerleader.
Well, thank you.
I'll pass.
I just ate.
See ya. Enjoy it.
Good luck. All right, so I'm putting that on the agenda, discussion of LOI with school board. Okay.
And probably, and again, we'll bring it up and I'll let you know to put it on the agenda or not, but based on Mark's and my team tomorrow, there may be traction with CIPTOD as well. There may be a similar type of conversation with them for the, because we're gonna need that parallel parcel behind the K5 that they own, the Reedy Creek folks.
Who are you meeting with there? Is there anyone to meet with?
Oh, yeah, no, he's still there. And his engineering team. Oh, yeah.
Mark, you
I
talked,
just talked to them. He is no longer in charge there. I literally just talked to them
He
today.
Still has his job and he's gonna have 2 jobs now. I talked to him 3 hours ago.
Yes, he's.
It's over the supervisor of elections.
And he is also going to continue to be the director for CIPTOD.
Yeah,
Until otherwise.
nice to have friends.
Hmm?
Nice to have friends.
So it's not just him, but it is some of his engineering staff as well. It's his chief of staff, his operations planner. one of his
What's their
engineers.
engineer's name? Because Carrie and I've been talking to her.
Just told me.
Yeah.
functions of it.
We've been talking to her about land and all of that.
If you guys, I'll send you the link. Mark and I have it. I'll send it to you. Join me.
That is
The
so
first
bizarre.
gentleman or the
Yeah.
second
That's bizarre.
First one.
gentleman? He's a good supervisor.
Yeah, one.
Elections.
Yeah, that's one.
It just.
Wait, what's that file? Not my problem, folks over there.
Yeah.
It actually is.
That's
No.
amazing. All right, so we got engineering, project manager, Dix Height, bond counsel, and you're gonna have legal counsel as well.
Yeah. all the legal things.
If over the next 30 days, going up to our next budget workshop, if you guys can, all
Try to
three
put
of you
that,
start
yeah.
kind of putting together some ideas of
Have some
Okay.
what
info
elements we're gonna need to put in there and
costs.
then start tying costs against those.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay,
What does the next agenda look like? I don't think we should pack so much into it.
I'm not, I'm gonna take some stuff out. You know, yeah, I'm gonna take some stuff out of it,
Yeah.
so that way it's not 5 hours long.
Well, and I also think going to Jack, what you said, there's limited stuff, but we're probably gonna need a full dedicated meeting. Just
Mhm.
talking about.
Well, that's why I said,
Yeah.
if we think we're gonna need a full dedicated meeting, then let's talk about doing a separate meeting.
Well, you will, but I think you getting past this stage, once you guys vote
Yeah.
to guys Jan to engage with the county and just see what this is all about, then she can come back and tell you, and then you can determine, do we need a special meeting? Do we not? Are we
We need
even?
for her to talk to them first before we really know what we're gonna come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
then she may come back and go, oh yeah, with all the information I got from them, we definitely need a special meeting. And she may come back and go, yeah, nothing, we don't need a meeting,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, you guys can determine after that. And to set a special meeting or another meeting is not a big deal. We just have to make sure we advertise it and all of that, so. Wouldn't take long to get a special meeting put together.
So let me ask a process question. Is there any advantage, like even with our budget workshops, to us scheduling them as workshops versus just doing them as regular meetings? Why wouldn't we just do every workshop as a meeting that way?
Because the problem, you can absolutely do that. You can schedule 15 meetings a year and make half of them about the budget. But the problem is when you schedule them as a meeting and not a workshop,
Mhm.
then everybody starts throwing all this garbage on an agenda, and then we lose sight of the topic that we're really here to discuss and get accomplished.
I mean, we do.
Does
it
that
as a
make sense?
Budget, and I'm not suggesting changing them, it's just.
Yeah,
we did it as
that's
a
the only
budget
reason.
meeting, and that's the only thing on the agenda.
And usually
You're right, when you
when you do that, like I said, then it's like, Tom's like, well, I want to talk about the tree in the right-hand corner over there. And it's like,
Talk about
But
that.
Tom talks about
But-
that anyway.
but we're talking about the budget.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, people, yeah, you do end up adding stuff
It is,
on
and
that makes it off.
that's why whenever you do a special meeting as well, that is typically for
Just one
one
item.
item.
Right.
And so you stay focused on that one item, you get that business done, and it's not buried with all this other stuff. And then you're like, oh, shoot, we're here 4 hours now and we haven't
If
even
we
gotten to the
call
budget.
Special meetings, I would suggest we have special meetings on budgets so that we can actually, if there's no value in just doing it as a workshop, then let's do them as meetings.
But even at a special meeting, if we just put the budget on there, I mean, you're not voting on anything. You know what I mean? But yeah, we can call them whatever you want.
With semantics.
That's all it is. It's semantics, whatever you want to call it.
And you also want to make sure the public knows what you're talking about. too.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say a meeting, it sounds like you're gonna do something.
Yeah. You're
Okay.
taking actions.
Just question.
Yeah, that's all. But yeah, again,
Workshops, no actions taken.
that is correct.
Tasks could be assigned, but no action is voted on.
That is correct. But
Well, we can't
again,
even assign tasks.
you can't, you cannot,
But the board, yeah, I think the board needs to talk about it.
No, I'm agreeing.
No, but you
Yeah.
can, you can,
Yeah.
no, but you can, no, you can assign tasks, but when we're doing the workshop, hey, you're gonna clean this up. Hey,
You're
you're
signing
gonna
budget
clean-
tasks.
correct. You're
Based
assigning
on
me to
that
clean
topic,
up the
that's-
budget.
yeah,
Yes,
that's all you do.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it. But again, at the end of the day,
Mhm.
we can call them whatever you want. We can advertise them however you want, but that's the premise behind it. Is because if you don't have it on one topic, it gets buried and then you kind of lose sight of why you're there. That's all. Oh, Jack, you have something?
I do.
Jack's got
It's
pictures.
probably,
Is it
is it for the budget?
Is it for the budget?
Related to the budget?
No, it's not for the
So
budget.
sorry, it's not, we can't talk about it.
This is about North Village again?
No, it's something the guys talked about at the last meeting. And I sent a letter to Angel tonight. Can
You
I
did.
talk about it just for a few seconds?
We'll give
We're
you-
not gonna make, not gonna make any decisions. but
Greg had a couple.
All I wanted to
seconds.
do
We'll
is,
let you have a
last
couple
meeting,
seconds.
you guys talked about replacing 2 trees out there in Artisan Park.
And we did.
Okay, I went out there and looked and they were our trees. And I talked with Russ about that area. And we own a 5-foot
Oh, was
area.
the Park with the strip around?
Yeah.
Yeah, we own a 5-foot section all the way around the thing. The rest of it's all belongs to Croa. I think you said we have 2 lines that go through there, but we probably have sprinkler lines that go through everything. The thought is that Russ says, why don't we get rid of the whole thing?
We never
And-
had it.
And there's a couple parcels like that out in Artisan Park that I mentioned to Lauren that, you know, we probably ought to think about readjusting some of these things. And it goes back to also North Village where we had the issue with the condos that have the property. So she sent a letter to Angel saying that Don and I should get together and talk about it. Just want to let you know that the thought would be to consolidate some of these lands that we don't really do anything with, give them to Croa or whatever.
And historically, this has happened, I think, a couple times.
Yeah,
Where they adjust, this is really a park, so this goes to Croa. This land is right next to Croa, why is the CCD maintaining when all we do, and then that's it, because,
I think
well-
we've got a partner on the other side now that's probably a little bit more.
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
Conversation.
This
just
is just to clean stuff up, that's all.
Yeah.
this is just a heads up, and I'm not looking for any authorization to do anything. I just want to tell you that I got the letter, and that's what it was about.
Did you get my letter?
No,
You're going to. Read it carefully.
so I don't know if I need a motion in the next meeting to allow me to go forward on this or not.
Well, you're
Yes.
just investigating, but then.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not doing anything.
No,
more
we
about
told you at the last meeting to go ahead and
Investigate.
engage us.
Yeah, come back.
That was already
Yeah.
gotten skipped,
it. Okay,
so
You got it. Go with
We would
it.
still have
Go
to.
for it.
I have the
We
power
would
to-
still have to approve,
make sure Don buys the coffee.
if that proposal comes up, the board will still have to approve that.
Don can't buy me coffee then. That would be buying me off, wouldn't it?
Mhm, that is
Conflict
correct.
of interest.
That is
Right?
correct.
Persuade
Thanks
us
a lot.
both the other
Well,
way.
Make sure we still have that easement, but that they,
Well, that was the thing we were gonna talk to Jan about, make sure we can maintain the easements. anytime we
We
need it.
make sure, and we have to make sure.
the water lines, but
Basically,
we're
right.
gonna take care of the
All right.
property.
You can meet on that later. Russ can
Okay.
go with you. What else we got? Anything budget related?
That's all I had. Again, if everyone, and I'll send a follow-up email, if everybody could have, their recommendations for any capital projects, and I'll send out a date or annual projects, sorry. Also keep in mind too, you know, how much you contributed last year to reserves and how much you want to contribute this year to reserves. Because especially if we're going to be exhausting some of our reserves this year for if it's sidewalks, if it's landscape, if it's the community center, if you're exhausting some of your reserves this year, how much do you want to replenish them? Also, as I say every year, start out with, do you want to increase assessments this year? Do you feel the need to increase assessments? Because that's really where the starting point is. And we can back into it from there. But if you have no desire to increase assessments, that changes how we need to look at this. If you want to see where you're going to see where it falls regardless, because that I'm putting in real numbers, whether that means a 30% increase or not. It's just based off of what I've come up with. And you can always pare it down. But you need to come to the table with, yeah, I think realistically, we're going to have to raise assessments this year. What does that look like? Because if it's a hard no from the majority of the board, then that's kind of a different perception that we need to look at this at.
So I'll say.
Yeah.
2 points to that.
Sure.
We started up here with increases, gone down here. My expectation is to continue the decline towards that, but we'll see. You know, I could have my dreams and wishes
Of course.
shattered when we start seeing the real numbers.
Yeah.
But we have decisions to make, but there is
Life
that
is full of
expectation.
disappointments, Tom.
Hmm?
Life is full of disappointments.
I go by. But it's on my
Yeah.
list. I put it on my list. It's sent you.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to back
North
into
Village,
something,
yeah.
find out what's above and below the priority line.
Yep.
That'll drive whether or not we're going to, I mean, I'm not trying to back into a number.
Well, again, every district does it different because you have some districts that come in and they're like, no, we are not going to raise assessments. And I can plead my case all day long, but the reality is they don't want to increase assessments. And then we have to start looking at the budget through different set of eyes, right?
I think we have to be open-minded.
Yeah, and you have some
Okay.
that say with inflation, you have to raise them.
Raise it
or percentage,
every year.
and
I have
they
some
just-
districts, no matter what the costs are, we do an increase of 3% every single year because they want to do an increase. If we don't use the money, it goes right into reserves.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's all different ways you can look at it. But you know, I
I
have
tried that with my family. Didn't work.
yeah, most districts, no matter what, every year it's a 3.
Well, you were the bank, that was a problem.
Right about
All right. Any other public comments? Gary, come on up.
A positive comment and question.
Of course.
First, Angel, that spreadsheet is outstanding. It gets better every year. I, for one, like your level of detail. I recommend keeping it. If this board doesn't like it, you're gonna need it 2 or 3 years down the road. Somebody else is gonna ask for it.
Absolutely.
So I really, it explains a lot when
Good.
people ask questions.
Here it comes.
My question is, not about that.
Who got a slice of pizza? We're gonna be here a while.
Is, no, you already have an answer. I may not know it.
Mhm.
But given the safety and security issues of school children, is it physically possible that the community can share the community center with school children at the same time during the day?
That was the one question that came up from the new attorney.
Yeah.
So she had concerns with experience of where she came from in Orange County, where they had backed into an existing building. I guess there was a YMCA or a community center next to it.
Mhm.
And they got into an agreement based on that existing center. And there were concerns there after the fact of, oh, okay, can we really do this? What I put to them was, all right, guys, we're not backing into an existing center. So tell me, if you're telling me now that there is no solution that would ever be engineered and designed that could fit, let
Right,
me know that now, and that's great, that takes this off the table. If you're telling me that there are things that we need to be met but are possible, then give us that list of what those things are, and then we'll figure out what we can afford to do or not.
I
based
know.
on 20 years of watching the news, I don't think a locked door is gonna be good enough. I think it's gonna be a complete
There's
wall.
statutory.
It was in the
Well,
script.
If you have joint use during the day.
So,
Yeah, there's statutory.
I-
requirements in the school board.
and I don't disagree with that. Then again, the school is surrounded by a fence, you know, that you can go ahead and hop over.
Right.
The fence also is completely open all the way down. You can just walk around and go right into school because of the way they laid it out. incorrectly.
It's a perception issue.
Yeah, but I deal with reality.
And we may get into the process in a couple months from now. Either their asks are way more than what we feel like we
Yeah.
could do. Or it may just be simpler that, to Jan's point, we just go to a plan B and say, hey, guys, rather than doing a joint use agreement, just sell us the land and we'll take it.
I
That's
got
still
an
on the table.
answer. You don't have to spend any more time. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That was a good question.
Appreciate it.
Valid question.
Anybody on the line, Brenda?
Just me.
Do you have any questions, ma'am?
I would like to start with my, no, I don't.
Wow. 7 years ago.
Let's start at the top of it.
Would you like them in my top five or alphabetical?
All right, good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you,
All right,
Brenda.
Brenda.
Can you save that and send it to me, Brenda, please?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Short.